Welcome to High Capacity, the podcast that helps you expand your nervous system's capacity so you can have the career and the family and the goals and actually enjoy them. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist. If your life is full by every measure and your nervous system is feeling it, this is your show. Every Tuesday, I'm here to unpack the nervous system science behind why you feel wired, overwhelmed, and depleted, and give you real tools to actually do something about it. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Michelle here. So glad you're here with us today on the podcast. We're going to talk about peace today, because if there's anything I know about you, you have built the career and the family and the life, the one that you have worked so stinking hard on for years, right? The one that looks so much like all the steps you kind of had planned and the hoops you've gone through and the late nights and like all the grinding, all the work you've put into it. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, and I've had a season in my life like this too, and it's led me to doing this work. But you see it all around you and it's really hard to enjoy it. And it's not because you're ungrateful. You know you're not ungrateful, right? You know how good you have it. You think about it all the time, actually, which is part of what can make this so frustrating, because you see all of the things that you wanted and it feels like you're mostly just managing it. And there's a gap there. There's a gap between what your life looks like and how it actually feels to live it. And that's what I want to talk about today, because the gap has a name, and it's not ingratitude. It's not burnout per se. It's not like this mindset problem. It's actually a capacity problem. And once you start to understand what that actually means, the path to peace stops feeling like a fantasy and it starts feeling like something that you can actually build. And that's where I want to go today. So yesterday we talked about, stopping waiting for our life to just get easier or more simple or slow down, and instead expanding the resilience of our nervous system so that the life that we live doesn't feel like too much. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you don't have to go back there right now, but I would recommend that if you finish today's, go back and listen to it, because this does build a little bit on what we covered in yesterday's episode. But I want to go deeper on something, and I just want to talk a little bit about why that capacity gap exists and why you can build, I think, this incredible, full, ambitious life and still feel like you're barely inside it. And I want to offer you a really powerful reframe that I think is going to hit different than anything you've heard before. And then I want to tell you exactly what peace can actually look like, because I think a lot of women are chasing a version of peace that doesn't really exist. And it's part of why peace and just calm and being grounded and present continues to feel out of reach. All right, so let's start with the reframe. And here's what I want you to kind of see and understand about the nervous system as you're currently living in this version of it, because the version of the nervous system that you're experiencing was built on a version of you that no longer exists. Okay, so stay with me in this. The patterns that your nervous system developed over your lifetime. So whatever those patterns are, maybe it's a pattern of just like grinding and pushing through and working harder. Maybe it's a patterns of overriding all of the signals in your body, right? The headaches, the gut issues, the insomnia, the hormones all over the place, like overriding it and just like continuing to push up and push through. Maybe it's patterns of anxiety and worry and staying activated. Maybe it's just like the high achievement and ambition and like continuing to go no matter what. Whatever it is, the patterns served you. I promise you that they did, even if they frustrate you, okay? They served you and they got you to where you are today, and they helped you build everything you've built. And I would venture to guess you were probably pretty rewarded for those patterns. You got the promotion, right? You were praised for your work ethic. People depended on you because you're dependable and you get things done. And all of a sudden you're the reliable one and the capable one. And that identity gets reinforced over and over and over again. Okay. Ask me how I know. And now you're probably living a life that's exponentially bigger and more complex and more demanding in all the ways than the one that those patterns were built for 10, 15, 20 years ago. You probably have more responsibilities now than you did, right? There's more at stake. Relationships are different. Maybe you have to make more decisions, or there's more people who need things from you every day. And your nervous system is still stuck running the same old operating system that it always has, but now your life looks so different. And it's not that this is like a weakness or there's something wrong with us, or no, it's just like, hey, this is an invitation to grow. You've just outgrown your nervous system's capacity. You graduated out of the life that nervous system was built for, and nobody handed you like the manual, the upgrade kit, right? On the way out. So the container metaphor that I use with my clients, like think of your nervous system as a container. Okay. Think of everything in your life that's demanding something from you. So talking about emotions, your own, and then your kids, and then, your partners, people at work, the mental load, all the decisions you have to make, the relationships that you're trying to foster, all the like ambitions that you have, the responsibilities, all the moments where like everyone needs something at once. Like I know how all of that feels, and imagine all of it goes into the container. Well, at some point that container is going to be full, right? It's going to be at capacity, and there's nowhere for this stuff to go. So it's just going to start spilling over. And that feels like, or looks like, maybe it's snapping, maybe it's the exhaustion, maybe it's, I finally have a chance to rest and I can't even do it. Maybe it looks like going through the motions, or like not being able to sleep through the night, just being so fried and you're wired, but you're tired. That's the full container. And the thing is that the container that you built, it got you to where you're at. Awesome. Thank you. Right? Thank you, container. And it was the right container for a season. It was the right container for a version of your life you were living while it was getting built. But the reality is your life has outgrown it. And the answer is not to shrink back, right? The answer is not to just like try to get everything to fit and squeeze like into the container that you have. The answer is actually to learn how to build a bigger container. It's capacity work. And that's what the capacity method is. And that's what peace, I think so much of peace is actually built on practically in the day-to-day, right? I think, for me at least, peace is very spiritual and it comes from something very different. But it also has to be congruent with what my life looks and feels like. That's just reality. And that's what I want to talk about today. What does that peace actually look and feel like? Because I think for most of us, we've had this version of peace in our heads that's probably never going to exist, right? And then we're just chasing these versions of why peace keeps feeling like it's just around the corner. It's just after this season. It's just after this new hire. It's just after this one more thing gets taken care of on my to-do list. But then we're chasing it constantly and it never actually arrives. And that's a version of life that doesn't really exist, right? Like sometimes we're just waiting for things to get easier or better or different. But it's like life isn't really going to be much less stressful, at least for me, in the near future, right? Like I am building so much in this season. My kids are still young. Like my schedule is not just going to miraculously slow down, and my inbox is not just going to like have nothing in it. And my kids aren't just going to magically wake up and be like, oh, mom, how can I help today? I'm going to be perfectly cooperative for the next 15 years. It's like, it's just not how life works. Okay. Peace that's conditional on our circumstances, it's not going to happen. It's not particularly helpful because there's too much outside of our control. Okay. So just waiting for things to feel less stressful and easier for us to be able to experience peace. I think that's how years can pass without anything actually changing. Okay. Real peace, the real flex that I want you guys to be able to have is the kind of peace that's actually available to you, not someday, but specifically now. And it's a nervous system that can hold your life without it costing you everything that you have. And it's not that hard. things stop happening, right? It's not that stressful things stop happening. They don't, and they probably won't. It's that the hard things stop taking you out, right? It's not that you stop feeling things, you feel them, but you can just move through them instead of getting stuck or having it all accumulate until you blow your lid, okay? Life doesn't necessarily get smaller. It's that you actually get bigger. And I think a lot of times, what does that actually look like? So maybe it looks like waking up without dreading the day. And it's not necessarily because your calendar is super light and there's nothing on it. It's because your nervous system isn't already bracing before your feet even hit the floor. Or maybe peace looks like a really hard conversation at work, but then you actually move on with the rest of your day and you don't keep ruminating and being like, man, I should have said this or I should have said that, or the way they responded kind of ruined the rest of my day. It's not that the conversation wasn't hard. It's that you have grown your window of tolerance wide enough to hold it and then come back to baseline shortly thereafter. Or maybe peace looks like presence. Maybe it looks like, I don't know, being at your kid's soccer game and actually being there and cheering and seeing what they're doing and not mentally being somewhere else and running through your to-do list half present, okay? Maybe it looks like stress that moves through you instead of sitting in your body for days. And it's not because life has necessarily gotten less stressful, but it's because your nervous system knows how to complete the stress cycle instead of storing it, okay? I don't think this is a fantasy. I think it's physiology, and it's what an expanded nervous system can actually produce. And every single one of these versions of peace, or whatever it looks like, feels like for you, it's available, you guys. And it's not just available when your circumstances change and when your life gets easier. It becomes available and accessible when your capacity gets bigger. Okay, so how do we get there? Let's kind of go through a little map, if you will, because I think one of the reasons capacity work can feel frustrating and confusing and vague is that nobody just gives us something specific to work with. But I want to do that for you. I want to give you a framework and a sequence and something that says like, hey, this is where we're going to start, and then this is where we're going to go, and then this is where we're going to go. Okay. So inside the capacity method framework, enrollment for that is open right now if you're interested. It actually closes tonight at midnight. So if you're listening to this in real time on June 9th, registration closes tonight, and then we start the summer cohort next week on the week of June 15th. Okay. Inside of the capacity method, we work across 5 different capacity types. So I just want to walk through each one of these really quickly because I think naming it makes the path start to feel real in a way that's like nervous system regulation, just as a general concept, doesn't do. So the first type is emotional capacity. Okay. So how much can your nervous system actually feel and process and work through and be present with without just shutting down, checking out, or without kind of exploding? When emotional capacity is low, that's what happens. You're snapping, you're kind of numbing out, you're stuffing things down, repressing, suppressing until, lo and behold, it kind of comes out sideways later. But when you expand your emotional capacity, you can experience frustration, anxiety, anger, sadness, disappointment, and you can process and move through it in a healthy way instead of just either like suppressing it where it accumulates or just like exploding, right? You can stop carrying all of the emotional kind of baggage into your next day and next day and next day and really start taking care of it and improving what I call emotional hygiene in the moment. The second type of capacity is physical and energetic capacity. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about how well does your body actually generate and generate energy, okay? Because when that's low, you're feeling exhausted before the day even starts. You're running on caffeine and willpower. You're overriding the signals your body has been sending you for a really long time. But when you expand your physical and energetic capacity, your body actually becomes a resource instead of something that you're constantly like overriding and pushing through. And then that just like crashes and burns, right? Collapses. The third type of capacity is stress capacity. Your window of tolerance for everything coming at you, okay? When your stress capacity is low, everything feels urgent, right? There's not enough time. There's not enough help. There's not enough money. I'm never going to get this all done. I don't even know where to start, right? Nothing feels manageable. You're swinging between feeling wired and then crashing. There's not a lot of steady ground in between. But when you can expand your stress capacity, you have a baseline of steadiness, okay? And it doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't depend on things going right or well, or your kids getting along, or your husband being in a good mood, or like, work going perfectly, because it's internal, okay? Baseline of steadiness. Fourth is relational capacity. When I talk about relational capacity, I'm talking about how well do you show up in your relationships without losing yourself in the process. So when that's low, I'm talking about over-functioning. So you probably can catch yourself or think of moments where you're doing this, but you're doing more than is necessary or more than is needed, right? You're doing things for your kids that they could probably do for themselves. You're doing things for your husband, people at work that they could do for themselves. You're micromanaging. And then what happens? We quietly build resentment. It's hard to connect, right? That feels like another obligation because we're already depleted. But when we can expand our relational capacity, our relationships, they just feel different. They start to feel like actual sources of energy and restoration and connection instead of just like, oh my gosh, that's another thing I got to get done. Okay. And then finally, and this is probably the one that gets the most response every time I talk about it, and it's my favorite, is our joy and pleasure capacity. Do you have the ability to actually feel and enjoy just daily life, right? The routine, the mundane. When your joy and pleasure capacity is low, which is, usually one of the first things to go when we've experienced chronic stress, then you're just going through the motions, right? The moments you're going to want to remember, the kids' birthdays, the family vacation, like that special, Tuesday after school when your kids like just grab your hands as you're walking in the car, they're happening, but you're not being able to experience the like warm fuzzies of it. Does that make sense? Right? And maybe you can remember a version of yourself before life got so complicated and full. And you remember like, man, I was so like spontaneous. I was so fun, right? Life just felt like lighter. I was playful. I could be silly. I was, adventurous, but that feels like a distant memory. And when that expands, specifically joy and pleasure capacity, you start to feel that again. Those moments, the people, the life you've built, right? And what I really want to get across when I talk about these 5 categories, because this is the leverage, is that they're not 5 separate different problems, if you will. They're 5 expressions of the same thing. And it's a nervous system that either does or doesn't have the capacity to hold your life, this version of your life, which means we don't actually need 5 different solutions and different stuff for each category. We need to expand the underlying system, and then all 5 of these categories will shift, okay? Your emotional capacity will shift, the way you generate energy, your stress capacity, relational capacity, and your joy capacity. They're all going to shift as you learn to expand the resilience of your nervous system. You need to expand the underlying system, and all 5 of these will shift. That's the upstream approach. It's what makes the capacity method so different. You're not treating each symptom separately, okay? So what does it actually look like to get from where you are to where you want your nervous system to be? I will tell you this, and you've heard me say it, and I'm going to say it again. More information is not the path, you guys. If you work with me, you're not going to get a PhD in the nervous system because it's not what you need, okay? And I say this as someone who has consumed an enormous amount of nervous system content over the last 10 years. And I know so many of you are the same because I talk to you and you tell me, you've listened to the podcast, you're listening to this now, you've read the books, you've taken, other online courses, you know what your window of tolerance is. You probably know what's going on with your hormones and your cortisol, and like you've heard about somatic work. You have a lot of information. And if not, you know how to get it, right? We all have access to AI and like just never ending information. And yet we're still frustrated by doing the same things over and over again because old patterns die hard, right? It's not because the information you're getting is wrong or incomplete or whatever it is. It's because information alone doesn't change much. It doesn't change your nervous system, that's for sure. Your nervous system changes through integration, right? We know about neuroplasticity. We know it's like small, consistent changes, repetition over time, consistent practices in a container that holds you accountable to actually doing the work, not just learning it and understanding it. And a couple of years ago, I had this woman, Anna, who came through my programs, and she sent me this voice memo in Slack, like mid-program. And I've thought about it so many times since. But what she told me is she's like, I can't really tell you the amount of like reading and research and just trying all different kinds of helpful information. I feel like I'm so overwhelmed just by all of that. Like that's overloading. And I don't know what to do with all of it. But having a guide and having somebody to help point me in the right direction has been one of the most helpful things I've ever done. And just like you, Anna isn't passive, right? She's not someone who's just like sitting around wishing she feels better. She's done it. Like she did the research. She was swimming in information and she still felt overwhelmed and lost about where to begin. And it's not because she didn't know enough. It's because knowing enough is not going to be the thing that changes what life feels like for you. Integration is the path every time. One skill at a time, 1 week at a time, with structure and support and a community of women doing it alongside you. That's what actually closes the gap between knowing what you need to do and should be doing and actually feeling different. And that's what the capacity method is built to do. So here's the thing about peace that I want to just leave you with today. It's that peace isn't a destination where you arrive and you just kind of stay there. Okay. It's not a season where you're like, oh, once I finally like hustle enough or hit this mark or make this much money or get this promotion or this happens with my kids, then I'm going to be like able to access and experience peace. Peace is actually a capacity that you build. And once you build it, your nervous system has the width to hold what your life demands of it and everything changes. And it's not because your life got a whole lot simpler or easier or slower. It's because you got bigger. You got better at managing it. You got more flexible. You got more resilient. And the same hard conversations or demanding job or the same thing with your kids or your husband or that same like full, ambitious, beautiful, complicated life that you have built is the same, but you are different inside of it. And you're not pushing through and managing it and white knuckling it and trying to get to the end of the day anymore. You're actually living it. And that's what's on the other side of this work. And that's why I get so excited about sharing the capacity method and this work that I teach with you. And the founding cohort does close tonight for enrollment. It's 10 weeks together over the summer. It's live coaching calls together every other week. So it's not too much. The somatic practice library, I have 40 plus practices in there. There's guided breath work, meditations, tons of somatic tools that you can experiment and play around with in this container together. And you're going to leave with 3, 4, 5 that are specifically yours that help your nervous system to shift states. It's a private community of women doing all this work, the same work alongside each other. And then there's the founding cohort pricing, which is the lowest this program's ever going to be. So cart closes tonight. If you're curious, if you want to learn more, go to michellegrosser.com/TCM. If you've been, listening to this podcast, the one from yesterday, maybe you've been feeling this for a long time. You've heard about the framework, the 5 different capacity types, what I talk and teach about peace, and something has just clicked. Like, don't let this go by without doing something about it. The founding cohort is coming together. I'm so excited about it, and I would love, love, love for you to be a part of it. So thanks so much for being here. I've put the link in the show notes so you can click on it, check it out. I would love for you to join us. We start on June 15th. All right. Thanks for being here. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon.